And welcome back to the SuperCoach Experience podcast. You're in the preseason with Mike and Jake, episode 3. As today we're going to be reviewing the front rows and the second rows. And we'll also do a little bit of like a hyperspeed trial wrap up. As always, for this pod, I'm your host, Mike, the coach of Trip Checker Mafia. And as usual, I have Jake with me, the coach of Kiss My Behinds. How are we, Jake?
Yeah, good, mate. It's good to be back in footy world. We've got a week of trials. We had the Indigenous game, or Indigenous Maori game, and it's good just to have footy back, I think. It's been a while, but we're back into it, and it's the Supercoach run's well and truly heating up.
Yeah, that it is. We're getting into the swing of things. More importantly, after the trials, have you been changing your side heaps? Have you seen how you've been going with the team tinkering?
Yeah, I think every Supercoach was watching games and had their phone in one hand tinkering with players, and I'm sure once some player did something, they were straight in the team or figured out a way to get in the team, and they did something bad straight out of the team. So yeah, I played with it a bit, not drastic changes because couldn't take too much out of that first week because a lot of teams were under strength. But it's something to think about and put in the back of your mind, especially some of the sides that were kind of playing position or playing off positions. So back row spot or back spot for like with Canberra, for example. So it was good to kind of get a watch on that. But I think next week's trials are going to be more key, where more of the first teamers come in, and we see a bit more of bit more of a gauge on where teams sit going into round one.
Yeah, I think it sometimes can be a bit of a trap with the trials because I think it happens every year. You watch it, you go, "Oh my god, he's killing it!" You chuck him in your side, and it gets to round one, and it just does not work out the way you want it to go. But obviously, when you're in contention of a couple of spots and you don't know who to choose, I guess a bit of form in the trials is good to see. Um, and yeah, like you said, Jake, I think we'll get more proper sides this week. Obviously, the Panthers have their World Club Challenge. So it'd be good to see if you're interested in some of the Panthers. It'd be good to see them. I think they're going to give it a big red hot crack. They want this title, so I think we'll get a bit more inclinations. But yeah, the NRL season's only really 2 weeks away. Round 0, as you call it. So it's going to be weird getting really excited for the start of this one, and you only get 4 teams teamless, but nonetheless, happy for the footy to start a week earlier. And yeah, I think I'd be calling a bluff if you haven't been changing and tinkering your sides, because it's just we're getting into the heat of it now. I think there's so many options, there's so many things I keep ticking over, and every time we have this podcast, I go into mass changes the time after because I reflect on it. And yeah, same as last week. Teams change a lot. A lot of the opinions I said on the last, I'm kind of now going, maybe you're wrong. And the beauty of the preseason, right?
Yeah, spot on, man. Even for some of the things I've said in the last couple podcasts, I'm like, maybe I might need to rethink what I've said and starting to second guess a few players. But no, I mean, yeah, won't lie that there's been a couple of changes. I think the big one is the news of I know we're kind of not really going to go into the hookers, but Jaden Brayley looks like he's not going to be right for round one. So a lot of super coaches that were kind of banking on 330k dummy half. You're going to have to find money somewhere to go up to someone that's at least playable, because I don't think there's going to be anyone else around that price or less that's going to be any worthwhile. I think if there is, they're probably going to be stuck like a Sony Luke in our teams like last season, and we don't really want that. So I think a lot of players are going to have to go up, and that requires cutting a bit of cost elsewhere in your side.
Yeah, I agree. Last week after the kind of the pod, I ran the 2 mid ranges, jumped on the Hands and Brayley. Then that news come out, and I was like, "Ah, shit!" Starting to like the look of my side, and I'm in the position where I've obviously had to upgrade. Barry Tui is reporting that Jaden Brayley should be right to go for round one. Whether or not that's in New South Wales Cup or in the first grade team, we're not 100% sure, but that's enough to scare me. To bank on starting Brayley at that price and not be trapped to him, you want a Brayley that's fit, playing in the trials, and the fact he's now still carrying another injury issue, I just think you're really asking to hurt yourself. When you plan your team, obviously you're going to have to take some risks at round one, but you've also got to moderate the risk you take and try and take, pick the right risk to kind of take while you're at it. So, Yeah, for me, I think, basically for people not knowing which one to start out of Hands or Brayley, I think it's more clear cut. His hands could be the same kind of trap, but in the end of the day, I think you had to take the punt on one of them anyways. But yeah, although they are the hookers, I did want to quickly recap on some of the important news from the trials. Brayley was one of the topics that I did want to cover, so we've got that over and done with. I'm not really going to go over the scores or nothing like that. Bulldogs Storms game. Samuel Hughes was very impressive. I guess I don't want to really cover too many of the mid ranges because we'll be talking a lot about the mid ranges today. He's obviously a cheapie from the Bulldogs, and we'll just talk about him now. He looked great, denied a try, very busy, and just a big body. But I remember seeing a video from the Cast Patrol guys that Savs like to share a lot of their stuff, and they did an interview with Karaz, and Karaz was saying that Sammy Hughes is the most fittest guy in the team at the moment. And boy, didn't he look like it in a team? Like, I think if people didn't have him in their side, I think he's the guy to lock in for that price point. And it seems after this trial, there seems to be a lot of those guys between 200 to 300 that are starting to put their hands up. And it's nice to have a bit of options for front row for once. But yeah, I think Samuel Hughes, he even looks like an option if he gets, the 30-ish minute mark. I think he could become a play. Uh, what do you think, Jake? Samuel Hughes, no-brainer, pick and stick?
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of the most owned players. Cheapy, he looked, in terms of across all games, I think he was probably one of the standouts. I know he kind of bombed that try, dropped it over the line. Front rowers get to be excited when they're trying to score a try. I can understand that. So, but yeah, he did look one of the best. He's probably the biggest body at the club as well, which the Dogs kind of lack. I think he could even get a start. I don't think Farmasili or Liam Knight really set the world on fire. So I think Hughes, I reckon if he has another good trial next week, I reckon he might be starting for him. And like you said, if he's starting, you're going to get at least 40 minutes. He's probably going to be a lock to, yeah, like you said, going to be even a play. So I was impressed by him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because if he's starting, you think he'd get around the 40-minute mark. And if he gets a 40-minute mark, and with the PPM it looks like he's going to have, obviously we had a small sample size last year. Realistically, for my second front row, I'm happy for them just to churn out a 40. If you can somehow churn out a 50, that's great. And then that even gives you, like, if you wanted to take a chance on someone like Kepi or a Totola, having someone like Samuel Hughes, it kind of helps you while you're navigating through that period because it then you go, all right, if Hughes is going to pump me out of 40 to 50 and this guy fails, at least I can also have the option of who I play from week to week. And also just adds a bit of depth to your side at a pretty cheap price in a position where normally the guys you're getting at 238 are a real slow burn. So, I agree with you. I thought Farmasili was actually pretty good for the Bulldogs. So I think realistically looking at it, I thought Liam Knight was pretty mud and reminding super coaches, although he seemed like a tempting option to kind of stay away. I was one of those ones that had him because I liked the jewel and I was like, all right, yep, here we go. He's finally going to be an option. But he gave us, I guess we can thank the trials for that because he gave us a good reminder of to stay as far away from him as you can and also help Samuel Hughes. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it'll be either him or Farmasili. And realistically, I think he could still pump about 40 minutes looking at it from hindsight, even from the bench. So let's hope he can. The big one, which I think a lot of super coaches were looking at in that Storm game was Ryan Pappenhausen. Both obviously good and bad news. The obvious one here wasn't kicking goals. Not sure if obviously, first came back in a trial that they didn't want to maybe overload him. But at the same time, it's good to note with the injuries that he's come back from, his speed was, he looked unwarranted from the injuries. And I think that was the main thing that you wanted to see. Like you combine that and the goal kicking, I'm 100% starting with Paps. But the fact he wasn't combined it with, he's got an early bye and he's got a really tough draw. I did have Paps in my team before that, but all of these made me want to upgrade him just because I'm like, there's too many risks there. You're risking a re-injury, no goal kicking by the looks of it, and then the fact that his draw's tough with the ball. I'm just like, there's too many, hurdles. Jake, what was your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he looked good. He looked quick. The try he scored off the kick, where he just absolutely blitzed everyone chasing to get to that ball first. As for the goal kicking, I know I have a feeling they're kind of just easing him in. Didn't want to make him worry about goal kicking. lot of knee mechanics and ankle mechanics kind of in goal kicking. Don't worry about that. Just focus on getting through, I guess, 40 minutes or however long he played. I think they might give him the goal kicking. Nick Meaney, he's a all right goal kicker, but he was missing some absolute howlers last year, and I think Pappenhausen's probably a lot better goal kicker than him. We'd like to get a bit of a preview on who's going to goal kick maybe this weekend, but again, might not be anything. We might get Meaney goal kick or even Pezzett goal kicking, and we don't kind of see who's leading the race. And again, with Pappenhausen, I guess the early bye, the rest of the fullback options don't have a bye for middle of the season, so that's kind of a way you can kind of, like you said, hurdle and go towards someone who doesn't have a hurdle in front of them.
Yeah, I guess the main thing is like he's going to cost you an extra, like 160K less than all those other options, and you could use that to fix your Jaden Brayley problem. So I understand why you'd be starting with him, and it's like if I get real desperate come season one, I might have to take the punt on him. But realistically, I think if Tom sets the world on fire or Scotty Drinkwater goes on a tear, and you're going up against players that have that kind of combo paired with a Ponga, you could see yourself fall behind if it just doesn't work out. So for me, I'm happy to watch Paps. And obviously, because he's a lot cheaper, he's going to probably soar in price if he kills it. Then you can kind of jump on. With that buy, you could look to round 5 if, touch wood, but say Tom gets injured or one of these other guys goes down. Then I think that option comes into play. So, I guess we're both in the same minds of that one. So would a lot of other super coaches. So, we already spoke about Brayley. I think the big watch in the Knights there, which I guess is going to be a big watch and will be, their ownership will surge in prices. Whoever wins the left edge spot for the Knights. Obviously, we didn't see Kai Pearce-Paul, but we saw Dylan Lucas. He was amazing, scored 2 tries. He looks so good. And to be honest with you, if he did win that starting edge spot, I'd be interested in him because he's available at the center wing. But if Kai Pearce-Paul's on that bench, are these guys going to kill themselves? Kill each other. SuperCoach tries, not kill themselves. Sorry. Are they going to kill each other's SuperCoach output by minute sharing? Which, you know what I mean? If that's what worries me. $4.99 for Dylan Lucas. I guess with Kai Pearce-Paul, you're spending a lot less to take that risk. Jake?
Yeah, I agree with you. That's kind of why I'm a bit I'm an R-ing over Dylan Lucas. I think Frizzell pretty much locks in at 80 minutes. There's a couple of, I don't know where I saw it, but they might have switched into the left. But I think Frizzell's going to stay on the right, and it's whoever's going to play left for the Knights. Because I think it was more like a trial between Lucas and Jed Cartwright. I think Jed Cartwright was good, but I think Dylan Lucas was the pick, scored 2 tries and was damaging whenever he got the ball. And then again, Kai Pearce-Paul, I think, trialing this weekend. So we might get another big watch on what way the Knights are going. But I mean, the Knights absolutely towed up my Sharks, and a lot of there was a winger, I can't remember his name, but he looked good. He played on the right.
The winger for
he's for the Knights.
Armstrong? Was it Armstrong?
Yeah, it might have been Armstrong. He was a big body, and it would be gold if
David Armstrong.
I think he deserves a spot on the wing. I thought he was fantastic. Just the way he carries the ball, he's fast. But it looks like Tawal's probably going to get that spot, which is unfortunate for super coaches because he's not a cheapie.
It's interesting you bring that up because I definitely think that spot's not sewed up. It's between Tuala, Milky, which is obviously Tom Jenkins, that they signed from the Panthers, and Armstrong. So realistically, I think he'll warrant to be in that trial again. And with another big performance, maybe there is a small outside chance. The only negative with Armstrong at the moment is he's only fullback only in SuperCoach. When he had that performance, I had a look, which sucks. Do they change things like that beforehand? Sometimes they do. Hopefully he does get that duel because obviously if he gets it, when they do the next run, it'll be a little too late. And I think it'd be absolutely crazy to start with him, even if he's on the wing and fullback only. So, let's hope he wins that spot. From the Sharks, Kale Iro, what are you thinking? I don't know if he did his hope and he didn't set the world on fire.
No, he didn't. I mean, the Sharks really didn't. They scored 2 early tries, and there are very few first teamers that were in there. They kind of came off, and Newcastle just went on a spree. Talakai did play in this game. He came on late. He didn't really set the world on fire either. It looked like an ankle injury. I don't think it's serious though. But Ko Hiro didn't really, impress or do his job any favors, I guess. Potentially earning a spot over Talakai if they were to move him. But I still think he's going to be the next back down if one of them do get injured. So there's always that if a shark back goes down, that Ko Hiro is probably going to be the next guy to fall in because there's no Connor Tracy there anymore.
Yeah, exactly right. So I guess a lot of people are hoping that he gets named just because there's such a lack of that bottom dollar center wing. So we can only hope, and I guess we'll get more of an inclination at this week's trials. I don't want to go over hard because I guess we could spend this whole hour really going over the trials. So we'll just do a bit of a brief one. The Roosters named a pretty full, strong side. Some important ones that I like the look of, which we'll kind of break down. Tupanua, Sam Walker, Tupu was really great, really good. On the other side of the field, Vega, I thought was pretty strong for Manly. Kind of gave a bit of Georgie Tafua vibes. And then on top of that, too, we have the Raiders. I thought Weeks looked really good and James Schiller both looked good. So kind of a bit worried about running some of these Raiders. So they did look pretty good. Ethan Strange and Chevy Stewart didn't really set the world on fire, although Chevy Stewart was great in defense. Didn't really like him in attack. And I didn't really have Weeks much, but after seeing him play, I know it was like a weaker side that they versus Eels. The Eels did have quite a few first graders in there, but at the same time, at his price point, if you're needing that extra money, which I've gone Caesar back down to him for now, it's hard to really go past him. Jake, any thoughts on that?
No, I 100% agree with you. Your analysis there on both them ones. I think with the Roosters as well, important Dom Young injured, doesn't look like he's going to be right for round one, which will cause like a reshuffle. Well, there was kind of like there's four spots, so both centers, both wingers, and they kind of had five players, Billy Smith being kind of the fifth player, that will kind of get a spot now with Dom Young not playing. So it's kind of like who then falls out the week after. So that's, I guess, a watch with Dom Young. It was a crusher tackle from Sipley, and apparently neck damage or something. So pretty worrying, but I think he's all right and should be all right for round two.
Yeah, because if he's not right, it's basically they're going to start with the Billy Smith, Suwali, but I don't have to worry really about dropping one of those guys. It'll just be when he comes back who they drop. So I guess it kind of makes it a bit scary picking someone like Suwali. And although you don't he shouldn't really miss out on his spot. You never really know. So it's going to because they've got a lot of options. Roosters. I think a lot of the other options that stand out we can discuss because there's a few forwards that I like the look of, which we'll go over this. Okay, we're going to go into second rows and front rows. Obviously, Savs and Tim have gave their outlook on what they think about it, and we might cover some of the same options. Anyone that's been watching the pod for a long time knows I'm a big fan of the mid-ranges, and the fact that there is so many this year, I'm going to be taking a full swamp of all these options, and I think with the lack of cheapies, I think of the lack of cheapies at this stage. I think one way you can make up for it is the mid-ranges. So I want to mainly highlight the mid-ranges. Obviously, there's some guns like Jermaine Hopgood, Nakora, Owakalatu. I like Elise Katoa, which I know the boys spoke about. I definitely don't mind if you want to start with a gun. I like all of those guys, Chuck, Cam Murray, and obviously David Fafita when fit. But to me, I just can't find the money to run one of these guys to make the teams balance. So I want to highlight mid-ranges, and now we have a little bit of a sample size from some of these guys. Jake, you can start, mate. Who's someone caught your eye? Or do you have someone that stayed in your team from the start and you 100% starting with?
Well, I think the guys in majority of teams is Sean Lane and Curran. I think we can kind of maybe talk about them quickly and kind of move on because they seem the locks for most teams. They're over 30% owned. Sean Lane down last year because he had that injury, so he's heavily discounted. He looked all right. He only played 20 or so minutes on the weekend, and he only had a couple runs, but it did enough for me to say that he's kind of going to be locked into that left edge spot, and we'll have Dylan Brown with him there, and I expect him to go back to 2 years ago when he was averaging 65 or nearly 70. So, Sean Lane, he was locked in straight away. Curran, I mean, he wasn't locked in straight away, and he probably isn't locked in just yet because we haven't seen anything from him. But going on the Bulldogs, we've seen in the past couple of years that he can be an absolute gun, work rate wise, and offload, tackle busting, all that. So I think at 420K, we potentially can expect him to play lock for the Bulldogs. But again, don't know, haven't seen anything from him. But I think those are two guys that are definitely undervalued, and the SuperCoach community definitely get behind both of them.
Yeah, Sean Lane, yep, 100% agree with you there. Josh Curran, I currently don't have Josh Curran. Very worried about him. We did get to see him play on the weekend in the Indigenous side. Looked pretty good, but the main thing with the Bulldogs is there's just so many question marks. What's their bench going to be? And I actually, as a Panthers fan, wasn't a massive Jermaine Salmon fan, but I thought he played amazing in the trial. He was roaming. He played a bit like constantly roaming. And like if someone like him drags that spot, either way, you're going to have someone like Salmon. Hutcho, if he's not Salmon, someone like him could be on the bench. Kurt Mann. All those guys are going to take minutes from lock. And to be honest, a lot of these mid-range options, a lot of them have a chance of playing 70 minutes plus. At 421K, Josh Curran, I'm not confident in how many minutes he's going to play. And if he gets around the 50 to 55, maybe he just does what he did last year and just isn't. When Curran's been an option in the past, he's been playing close to 80 minutes, and I'd prefer Curran on an edge. If he was on an edge, I just think, he's such a good hole runner as well. So for me, he's just a wait and see. And there is so many Bulldogs options, man. You got Kickout, which I'm sure we'll get to. Hutcho could be an option. Sherry could be an option. Karaz, Max King, like they've just got a lot of options. So I don't want to, with a team that's got so much to prove, and I'm not sure how they're going to go, I don't want to overstack myself with them. But at the same time, 31% owned, like you said, Jake, and the price is right, but I feel like there's a lot of guys around that price. And at 31%, I'm happy to, fade him to start with. If you're wrong on these guys, you've got a chance to jump on before their third price rise. I think the fact with all these mid-ranges, if, say, you've got Piakora and Piakora does no good, you can easily jump off him. But the hard thing is with a lot of these guys is it's not going to take – all it's going to take is one big, 80-plus score for them to start getting a nice little small period of money-making. I've mentioned Piakora. Piakora scored a double on the weekend. His SuperCoach points were 77, played quite a few minutes. That's worrying a few people going, he doesn't really have much base. But I owned Piakora as a bit of a pod towards the end of last year. And, yeah, he required tries a lot of the time. But I honestly, I think, even against the tougher sides, he runs such a good hole. And I expect to see quite a few tries from him this season. So, realistically, picking him, you just pick the matchups. And I still think he's a viable option. Owned by 26% of coaches. Are you liking Piakora, Jake?
Yeah, definitely. Even like you said, even from last year, we kind of got the feeling that he's going to be attack stat dependent, but he's going to be playing the Broncos. Reece Walsh wrapping around. He's going to have Reynolds, Ezra Mam, whoever's on whatever side he is. He's going to be scoring tries, and we saw that on the weekend. Although they were versus a Cowboys outfit without any of their major players. He apparently picked up a bit of an injury at the end. Piakora, I think it was a knee or something injury. So I think it's been
like a PCL or something.
Sent for scans. So he could be one that we miss out, which I guess might shrink the pool of our mid-range options. So
yeah,
which is what I prefer to have. Yeah, heaps of options, so everyone can pick the ones that they like. But if we're kind of losing a Piakora, it's one less good option that we're kind of maybe missing out to start with.
It just all depends on his scans, but at the same time, I guess it's a little bit worrying, the fact, they've got to travel to Vegas and that, so It is a little bit worrying. But yeah, at this stage, obviously fit. I like him as an option. One of the next, Tallis Duncan, we'll talk on quickly. I know a lot of people have hyped him up. Played off the bench. Honestly, looked like, some people calling for him to start, but I'm pretty confident in saying I don't think he's going to start at this stage pending injury. Looks like Jai Arrow will start at that second row. And I think he can be an option at some stage. If Duncan can stay around, play similar minutes he did last year, and then an injury pops up and then he has more of a role, he can be a guy you could jump to later. But on the flip side, Jai Arrow, a gun of the past, and a guy that just keeps seeming every preseason keeps to just dangle a carrot in front of you and go, I might be an option. And then you have a little bite of the carrot and then you realize, oh, shit, like just starts pumping 40s and 50s. And look, I'm not keen on Jai Arrow at all, no matter what carrot is dangled in front of me. But Jake, are you?
Yes, mate, I'm looking at that carrot. Not for second row, but the fact he's available at front row, I'm looking at that carrot and going, it was good a couple of years ago, I think, when he was playing edge. Because last year he played like no edge, but the year before he was playing on the left edge and he was averaging 55, I think. But he was kind of playing a bit of middle as well, so he was kind of getting a bit of base in it. But I think he was playing on right edge on the weekend, actually. So I think he might be... I think they might be swapping. I think they're throwing Colin Matangi onto the left and Arrow onto the right, which I know we weren't really going to talk about guns, but Colin Matangi, do you like him on the left? I don't think in the south side that prefer to go, say, Cody out the back. He doesn't really play a short ball much. Cody prefers to go out the back, say, Latrell, or shift it straight out to Alex Johnson. I think that might hurt Colin Matangi. So I think Jai Arrow being on the right might be slightly more beneficial for Jai Arrow than him being on the left. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a good point to make because we saw that article that the Bunnies were exactly talking about what you just said about switching him. It could really, really work, obviously, having all those guys around him. But at the same time, you're right, they're going to be looking to find the Johnsons and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure with him switching, they've been running plays to give him the short ball because obviously, Demetrio won't want it to, lose his strike weapon. Colin Matangi tempts me every season. I can see myself being tempted at a later point, but yeah, I'd like to see how kind of that unfolds and how he looks on that left edge. But I think for sure, one thing for sure is he'll still be scoring tries, bro. He's just a freak at finding that try line. He's an animal. Next option, 16% ownership's been going up a little bit. Bo Firma. I've had him for quite some time. Wasn't in my first draft, but yeah, he's back. According to insiders in the tight ends, that he's like they say, for all training the house, but just one of the fittest guys in the club at the moment, which is, I guess, good to hear coming back from a pretty big injury, which is why we get him at such a discount. And the other big news here is, which will be the big thing to take account of, is that David Fifita is obviously not going to be back till round 5, I think it was. Will Firma start on that left side, which I think is a huge chance? And if he does, there might even be a chance if he lights that up, which we know he can. Maybe Fifita comes back on the right. Obviously, new coach, Des Hasler, anything could be. But I was keen on Firma at the right-hand side because he just seems to find the try line so much. And a guy like Firma can give you about 40-ish in base at times. And you'd take that for 467K with his upside. Yeah, him on the left just sells me the case even more. But either way, as you say, the options are getting a little bit fewer. I'm pretty keen on Firma, even with the early buy. Your thoughts, Jake?
Yeah, he was one of the first players picked for me. I don't know, I didn't go into it because he was kind of a bit less owned. But yeah, he was one of the first players picked. Averaged 65 2 years ago. I know coming back from a ACL injury, you don't expect the same output. But I even had a feeling that he was going to start edge and Fifita to go back to the right anyway, because Firma, 2 years ago was playing left and Fifita was on the right. So I had a feeling they were just going to throw Firma. I think having Foz there, Firma's more of a hole runner, which benefits Kieran Foran. So I think that's potentially why they would have gone Firma on the left. And, Fifita is to get him the ball early and he'll do something, which probably is more beneficial to, say, a Tana Boyd on the right. So, yeah, I think Firma's going to, keep the actual left edge spot for the Titans and, yeah, lock him in. I think he'll average over 60 at least. We saw 2 years ago that he's an absolute try-scoring machine. And, I mean, don't expect the same thing this year, but I think the Titans are definitely a better side than they were 2 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. And it was good to note that at one point, the defense looked pretty strong at the first half, and then it kind of slipped away. Just want to take a quick note. I forgot to have a reminder that this podcast isn't live as of yet. It will be when we start the actual season. So just obviously when we're talking about things as it happens live, we're recording this on a Monday this week. Just got a bit of a kind of a live update from Savs, live as I mean for us, that confirmation that Broncos back rower Brendan Piacora has an MCL strain. Reading between the lines here, it doesn't sound like he'll play in Las Vegas. So we just were speaking about him 10 minutes ago, kind of a bit of a bummer, but obviously comes back a bit later, could be an option for some of these guys that fall. So realistically, with not much extra cash in my side, just kind of not liking Josh Curran, I might have to go Josh Curran at this stage. So I guess I'll have to review that after the podcast. But yeah, I guess we don't want injuries for anyone, but at the same time, injuries, if we get cheapies out of it, are nice, but it's not good to be copping these injuries. It seems like we're copping them to all these popular owned guys, Brayley now, Piacora. So it's stinging, that's for sure. All right, let's move on. There's two options at the Roosters. One that people are kind of buzzing a bit about. So Sia Wong, 10%. After seeing what this guy can do, his game is built for SuperCoach. The problem with the Roosters is they are stacked for second rows. You've got Nat Butcher, who I think will demand a main spot on the right side, or whatever side he plays. He'll have that. And then you've got Sia Wong. You've got, obviously, Tupanua, and then you've got Angus Crichton. So whether or not they fit all these four guys, I don't think they will. I think you'll get three of the four guys. And there's a world where, Sia Wong might miss it altogether. Guy that I've been pretty keen on and is only at 4.2% at this stage. But obviously, with people like Piacora dropping off, I see him an easy switch for them for a lot of guys. It's this Tilly Tupanua. Played really pretty good on the weekend, does what he does normally, and he scores tries. Am I worried about playing Tupanua with the fact with Crichton on the bench might only play 56 minutes? At 398K, I'm not really worried. Roosters love to shoot that side. I really think the Roosters going to be an improved outfit. So I really like Tupanua as an option. I've had him as kind of like a sneaky pod for now in my side as a way just to kind of get a bit more money going. Someone like kick out to him. Tupanua, do you have him in your side yet, Jake? And I'm sure if the answer is no, that you might look to flick Piacora to him.
Yeah, well, yeah, Piacora at the moment, and yeah, Tupanua. I think the fact that the Roosters rolled out with a pretty full strength side on the weekend kind of maybe leaning towards Tupanua probably being a starter. And Suwong, I think he was on the extended bench, so he kind
Extended bench with Crichton on the bench, correct?
Yeah, missing the team altogether. So yeah, Tupanua sub 400K. I think definitely a big option with Piacora not being there for round one. I think if you don't like Curran, again, Tupanua, you can save 30K going that way. We've seen, in the past, his try scoring machines average over 50. So yeah, I definitely like it. Again, probably don't expect him to play 80 minutes. I think with, they're going to carry back around the bench. And Tupanua, I think I was watching bits and pieces of the Roosters game. I think when Angus Crichton came on, Tupanua might have been playing a bit of middle, or Crichton might have been playing a bit of middle. So I still think there's going to be quite a lot of minutes for whoever does get that edge spot for the Roosters. So yeah, I'd be pretty safe, going 400. And if it doesn't work, you got Piacora coming back in a week or two that you can kind of just straight swap him for. So I think yeah, there's not much harm in going Tupanua.
The only thing, obviously they've got a really tough draw to start with the Broncos, Manly, Bunnies, and Panthers, but it just seems like a lot of these guys do, and you can't always worry about the draw because, especially some of these big second rowers, they can crash over no matter who they're versing. Don't have to worry about the bite around 14 with him, and a lot of these guys that we're talking about, the reason what makes these mid-ranges so good is a lot of these guys are guys that we've seen at 600K plus and have gone down in price based on injury or positional switches last year, which means you're getting a lot of these underpriced, guys that we know their sample size. They're not a guy like, example, Tallis Duncan, where we have a small sample size of. So it's kind of why the strategy with the mids is to go for these fallen, or some of them aren't guns, but, guys that we've seen what they can do and believe they can get back to it if the minutes come back to them and kind of their role gets back to them. And obviously their side's improved. I think what year it was. So in 2000, last year, he averaged 39, but in 2022, he averaged 53, and in 2021, he averaged 55. So he's priced at an average of 39. All those previous years we mentioned, there's been a lot of injuries to some Roosters, and come quite a few injuries, you might see him playing 80 minutes on the edge, which I think is gold. So it's a no-brainer. And I know sometimes, we try not to talk about the super pods, but these guys are going to be going up in ownership for sure with all these injuries and carnage. And I guess just a lot of people didn't think he might have started. But to be honest, it makes sense that Robbo would go to someone like him. He's been there and done it before. And Wong's just probably going to have to buy his time, unfortunately. Next option.
Did you want me to throw one in, Mikey?
Yeah, go for it before I go to my next one.
Well, hopefully I haven't stolen him from you. Is Sean Bloor?
No, you haven't stolen him.
No, okay. So, yeah, Sean Bloor, we didn't see the Melbourne kind of, apart from Pappenhausen, rolled out a second team, I guess. But they did roll out Trent Liero at lock, and it looks like Trent Liero is going to be playing middle this year. He was a bit underwhelming last year in terms of output on the edge. So it looks like Sean Bloor might get an edge spot. An outside Munster, I think that is pretty golden. I know he's kind of burned us a bit in the past, Sean Bloor. He's been good in patches, but I think under Bellamy, new team, outside Munster, I think he's going to be not quite. I don't think he's going to quite hit the Katoa heights, but I think he can definitely go close because he's a damaging runner and SuperCoach friendly game, I think. So what about you, Mike? Is Bloor anywhere near your side?
He's not at this point in time, obviously, because I prefer guys like Piakora, but obviously with that news, he'd probably be someone I prefer to jump to over Curran, especially if he's starting on that edge spot. Also, it's important to note that Jack Howarth played not too bad in that Indigenous and Maori game, and obviously he wasn't able to be trialled into that Storm game, so we might see him get trialled. I think Bloor could be ahead in the pecking order, but we're not too sure. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully, Bloor gets a run at this trial, but if he's starting on that edge, I'm always going to take a Storm second row at a mid-range to cheap price. Look at Katoa last year. For all those reasons you said, yeah, I'd want him. Personally, I didn't have him at the top, but at this stage, yeah, we're looking for someone around that price. Like, he's only going to cost you an extra 20K to jump from Piakora to him. So, yeah, 100% an option if he starts. It's just whether or not he does, because they do have quite a few, people that could fill in there. But surely they tried to get him across early, right?
Yeah, well, they did. So they've chased him to get him across early. I think they made the kind of player swap with Justin Olam to sort of make it go through smoothly. So I think the Storm are really keen on this guy. So it'd be silly not to, I guess, actually play him. I guess, well, they were kind of keen on Howarth. They gave him a big contract. I haven't really seen anything from him yet. So again, yeah, he might be in the conversation as well, which would be all right because he's a lot cheaper than Bloor.
Yeah, 100%. Do you currently have Bloor on your side at this stage?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And they do have the round 4 bye, but at the same time, with these mid-range guys, I think it doesn't matter as much. I think when you're choosing between high-price players, then it does. But with the plethora of mid-range options, it's not hard for you just to switch around. I'm using big words today. I'm getting good. I don't even know.
Mikey got his sound like they out today.
Yeah. Ooh. All right. So, yeah, see, there's just so many guys to talk about. And I know there's still more that we've got to cover because I think the second role is a bit more comprehensive than the other. Let's talk about the Cowboys. So the Cowboys now with Lulua hasn't confirmed to be going, but he wants to leave. Raiders, Dragons looks like the suitor. So if that's the case, he leaves. There is potential on the one edge. Obviously, Nanai takes up one. And we assume that Hilum Luki, who is a mid-range option, 470K, we know what this guy can do. He's got so much potential. But he does have, I'm going to try and pronounce it.
Yes, I was hoping you're going to try and pronounce it.
Kulikefu Finefuawaki, which I feel like isn't a bad guess, but I don't know if that's right.
For your standards, Mikey, that is exceptional.
Finefuawaki. I feel like that's close, but I wasn't paying attention. He did score a try on the weekend, and this guy looks like a weapon. And if he's at 290K, if he comes off the bench, so we're obviously talking about both of them here. I am kind of looking for a second row on my team around that low price of 3 to 350. I've got like someone like him or Palacia kind of eyeing off. And to be honest, if he's starting on the edge, if there really was no one else and you wanted to take a punt on him, I don't even hate taking a punt of him even on the bench. I know it might sound a bit crazy, but it seems like this guy that's just going to come on and even not starting, impact player, score a try. I just see it happening. This guy just, in the small sample size I've seen of him, keeps scoring tries. So Helium Lukey, same thing. Like, will he kind of share minutes with this guy? Because I assume at the end of last year, we need a nickname for this guy because I can't keep renaming. Like Kuli Kefu, the machine. Like he just keeps on. He was on the bench towards the end of last year, so I'm thinking he's going to get a bench spot this year, and it'll be interesting to see if we have a share minute role. But yeah, Lukey looks like he'll go in as a pod, and I don't mind either of these guys. Jake, your thoughts on these two Cowboys?
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to share minutes with each other, and even maybe Nanai. If the Cowboys are going well, Nanai's going to be spelled for him. I think they're both going to be in the side. I think Lukey will probably start. He's a gun as well, Lukey. He just cannot stay fit. So I think he'll start, and then 20 to 25 minutes for Fine Fuiaki. So I mean, they're going to take, like you said, take points off each other. Not ideal, especially I guess for Lukey. If you're going that, he's a mid-range option. You'd like him playing 80, but I don't see them both playing 80. Or I mean, well, either of them playing 80, I guess, because I think Nano is definitely the pick of the back rowers. So I'm staying away from him, even if Fubiaki was, I guess, on the bench. Still, I don't like 20-minute. Well, 10 to 20 minute back rowers in my side. Even at he's not going to be bottom dollar. I think he's like 290, 8 or something. Yeah. So he's not exactly bottom dollar. That 90K. I don't even have an option like less than that. He's kind of I've gone up, but yeah, I don't really like either of the options. I do like Nanai actually. I mean, a bit more expensive, more towards the gun category. I think Cowboys can improve, and I think he can, but. Again, the amount of, I guess, mid-range or cheaper options that are fallen guns or potential guns on the brink of it. Yeah, I prefer.
It's a good point to make. In all our podcasts, we've really hammered that, we think the Cowboys are going to have a bit of a comeback. And there's a lot of these guys that did really well in 2022 and had a lean year last year. If you're going to take one gun, I'd be happy to pay up at 583K and take someone like Nanai later by. Not a bad draw.
As well.
That's what I mean. Like, obviously, he's one that solely relies on, needs tries to really bump up a high profit game. But we've seen him price at like the 700K at one point. So, that's a good shout at 3.9%. I don't think he'll really rise much higher than like a 7-8%. I think it'll be a good option. I think a lot of the guys will be looking, like, while we play in the start of the season, looking to jump off some of these mid-ranges to these options before they get too expensive. So it's going to be interesting how everyone bridges off these middies or what they do with them. And how you hold on, because you want to be picking these mid-ranges and kind of choose the one that you think is going to be someone that you can keep. Like you'd be buying Sean Lane thinking, I'm going to hold this guy for a pretty good amount of the season if he doesn't get injured. So I guess, which ultimately saves you a trade later down the track. So I think that's the key point to make here. We did speak about Josh Curran before, but we didn't really speak about Viliami Kikau, who comes in at 11.9%. Which isn't that bad. I did have Kiko on my side, a bit of an ex-Penrith fan. I know what he can do. And last year, he didn't really show the Bulldogs what he could do. So I think this year he can. You put Crichton over on that left side, and I really like him. I personally, just to make other changes in my team, dropped him to Tupanua to that extra 70K was to me, it was a lot to be able to upgrade where I needed it. So I'm happy just to wait and see with Kikau. But at the same time, base isn't that great. Relies on tries a lot, but I really think that, they may come a bit more this year if the Bulldogs, look pretty good. And they played great on the week in the trials. I know can't take too much from that. But if Kikau's fully fit, I don't expect him to play 80, but he's definitely an option at that price, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, Timmy has a love affair with him from the year he won. So I think, Kikau, although, the Dogs are not going to be the damaging side that Penrith were, I definitely think Kikau can do better than what he did last year. I think you can expect the Dogs to improve. They've they've signed well. I expect their combinations to be better. They've got pretty much whole left side Penrith combination. So surely it starts to gel and they do well. So I can definitely see Kikau being another one of those mid options that, and I guess he does have attacking upside where a lot of these other ones kind of don't. Like Current doesn't. I know we mentioned Arrow. Arrow doesn't really have it either. So he definitely has that high attacking SuperCoach game, and that's someone you can definitely consider.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move over to the front row. We won't have a big dive.
Well, sorry, I'm just on trial form. I don't know if even if he gets a spot, he's probably not going to be considered. But at 326k, I was impressed with Alex Seyfarth from the Tigers. It looks like he might actually be starting lock for him. So that's one to kind of watch maybe this week. If he gets more minutes in a more meaningful trial, he's kind of someone you might want to watch. Annoying that they have to buy first round, but it's someone that just on trial form I was quite impressed with because Tigers kind of rolled out a starting side that might be similar to what they roll out in round 2 because they don't play round 1.
Yeah, the main Fanua polls in a lot of or Polo, however you want to pronounce it, a lot of the predicted lineups for the 13. So yeah, if Seyfarth does, we're talking about I wanted a lower range second rower instead of like a Palacia or the Cowboys guy that's very hard to pronounce. He could be an option. Like more so, I think with the Tigers jump, if you're going to VC someone, say like a Ponga, and he goes nuts, I'll be looking to a Tiger that I want. Example, a Caesar, or you could take a punt with Seyfarth to loop for that week, but that turn into an option the week after. So could be a bit of a punt that could work out.
Or someone that we're very impressed with as well, Api Coruscant, potentially one that you could use as a option if you wanted to get that hooker.
Also, the only difference with an option like Coruscant, who I can see the interest in him, it costs you 200k more. Where if you're taking a punt on like a Seyfarth and that, it's a lot of a cheaper punt. And to be honest, in your second row, like you need a bit of a cheaper guy. And if we don't get Dylan Egan, which doesn't look likely, I like that shout on Seyfarth. It looks like he's going to play a bigger role this year. So no one's got dibs on that lock spot. It's not like a Baden or Papali'i playing lock. So I really don't mind that option. I guess it's also kind of a lot of the guys that played for the Indigenous and Maori teams. Would be good to see them go back to the pack this week and kind of see how they look in their lineup because I really want to see Palacia in the tight ends and just see a lot of all these other guys, because Palacia is another one, which I guess we're going through front row. He's a front row, second row I want to talk about. He was one of my starting 2 front rows for a bit. I've kind of just nudged him down to second row because I actually have a dual front rower at the moment. So I like the fact that I have one way to switch between, which is a bonus if you can make work. Palacia, another one, come from the Broncos. I'm pretty sure that he's another one that I'm not sure if he got a release or someone that they wanted over there ASAP. They got him ASAP. And, there's a potential that he could start at the Titans, whether or not it's prop or lock. I'm really only interested in if he starts his dual, 365k. And the small, like what we saw it in the Broncos, look pretty good. He's the kind of guy, if he goes out 40 minutes, if you can roughly get around that, for that price point, I think he can make some money. Jake?
I don't mind Palacia at all. Obviously, it's going to depend if he does kind of get a start.
He needs to start, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I prefer a punt on Seyfarth.
Yeah. With Tino demanding, 65, 70 minutes a game, it's kind of a lot of middle minutes, and they kind of share it with their bench. But yeah, Palacia is the one that the Titans wanted. They have quite a few front rowers. None of them really set the world on fire apart from Tino. So there's definitely a spot there, whether it be lock or 2 front row spots wherever Tino sits. Knowing that they have an early buy as well, the Titans, then you kind of be forced into playing one of your bench front rows, which if we get Sam Hughes, we're probably going to be fine playing Sam Hughes anyway. So, I can see why Palacia is definitely an option.
Yeah, 100%. So the option at front row this year, normally I always stick a Payne Haas or a main front row. And I think this year with the plethora of the mid-range options and wanting to stack all these
other word again. He loves plethora.
Yeah, that's just a good word. But seeing all these other options and obviously stacking it up, I just can't see a world where running, the gun halves, your gun fullbacks, how I can fit the guy like Haas in. Haas had a bit of a lean game on the weekend, really very un-Haas-like. No, it was a trial, and he's going to be a gun either way for this season. But I just can't pay up. This, like most years, I try and pay as little as I can. And I kind of this year we have quite a few mid-range options in the front row. So I'm not going to steer anyone away from Tino and Payne Haas. I think they're the top premium options. Tarpanay looked amazing in the Maoris game. I can't talk anything off him, but we're not going to deep dive into these higher price front rowers because I think, I'm not going to see anyone if they want to spend it. Yeah, go for it. Like they're great options. But looking a bit at the guys with a bit of value here, we'll talk a little bit about a bit of the cheapies. You start us, Jake. Who have you picked as your front rower? Do you agree with me, or have you spent up cash for a front rower?
I mean, I've had different builds. I've gone the Haas route, and I'm like, I can save 200K and spend that on more upside players or upgrading a player that's probably going to score me 20 points to someone who's going to get me, I guess, more in that gap. That going down to someone like a Ruben Cotter. I'm keen on Ruben Cotter. He's got the captaincy now. The Cowboys had a lot of niggling injuries last year. He was kind of managed, I guess, through last season. Had some head knock issues as well, which they're kind of monitoring him through the off season. I remember seeing it was him and Ezra Mam, I think, that they kind of been monitoring in the NRL to make sure that they're ready to go. And if he is, he's captain. I expect him to be back to 2 years ago when he was sort of announced himself and he got the Origin spot. So I expect him to be a lot better than he was last year in terms of SuperCoach output. So that's why, and I think he's like 20-something% owned. So a lot of people are leaning that way.
Yeah, I'm one of them. Here's my main front rower. I've been all over the Cowboys all preseason, 26.4% owned. I think that captaincy is a big one. We know what Ruben Cotter can do with minutes. I think that will help his cause and all those reasons you said. He's also a dual handy, like, if you do run a Palacia, when the buys come, switching them between it can be a handy one, although the Cowboys, you don't have to really worry about the buy for a little bit. Most likely will play Origin, especially if he goes on a run. And we saw what he did the year before, so can play prop, can play lock. It's a no-brainer. I think if you're not starting the gun, the price is right for me, 542K. I think even if he doesn't set the world on fire, I think he can at least score at what he's priced at, which is the main thing you want to look at when you are spending money on some of these players. A guy that really stepped up on the weekend, obviously another one I'm keen to see play for the Broncos this week. Played in obviously the Indigenous Mara game for the Broncos. Xavier Willison. I kind of he played really good in like the trial they played against like the Tweedhead or whoever it was the week before. Massive. This guy is huge, so big and tall, and just that kind of front row that's going to come on, play limited minutes, but you're going to assume he's going to have a high PPM and he's going to look like scoring. You're not going to play this guy, but you want a guy that is looking like he can score some tries, and he makes that whole slow burning process a lot quicker. So after that performance, he was already on my radar. But after that, if he jags a bench spot at the Broncos, which I believe he will, I'm all over him, even if he plays minimal minutes. Jake, I know you're going to agree with me.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think he's definitely got the pedigree. So I think, if he gets a bench spot, which looks likely, he's playing well and trialing well. So at 260K, not really many front row options. We don't get them every year. So I think, he'll be a lock, and I think he'll be in a lot of teams as a cheapy option.
Yeah, 100%. We'll go down to Terrell May from the Roosters, a guy that seems to be, it doesn't matter that he's on the bench. Very high PPM, getting better, obviously up for grabs. So did the Roosters give him some more minutes attempting to stay? We know he wants to play with his brother, so we think that's going to be the pull to get him some. But in the end of the day, you kind of look at him and go, it'd be better if he was starting. But you look at his numbers, and even on the weekend, they played a pretty, as you said before, full strength side. And I think the SuperCoach points that he pumped out in the time he played was pretty good. So I don't know if I'm going to take the punt on the bench, but at the same time, that price is right to kind of pair him with Ruben Cotter. I'm troubled with Ruben Cotter. Obviously, Samuel Hughes and Willison could be plays at times, but you kind of want to. I'm looking for a guy around that 350 to 450 mark to be my second front rower. As I believe, I think that's kind of the right cash generation that suits my side. Didn't look too keen there on Terrell Make, Jake.
No, I mean a lot of hype on him because how he kind of finished the year. I'm not really keen on him. I think you got Victor Radley's going to be playing big minutes. I think Connor Watson's going to be pretty important through the middle for him. I think he's going to play a lot of minutes. I think then that'll, whether he's playing hooker or lock, I think that means Cheese goes in the middle. Lindsay Collins is another guy who's going to play big minutes because, origin level player. So I just don't see I know he doesn't need the minutes, but if you're paying what you kind of got produced by last year, which is, I think, his price of like a 42, I don't see him improving much on that. Where I think we can maybe go someone that's around that mid-range price that we can probably see a bit more value in. That's why I don't know. I don't see the Terrell May hype in terms of SuperCoach. I mean, as a player, he was killing at the end of last year, but in SuperCoach, in how it's kind of set up for the Roosters, I don't think there's enough value in it for me.
Yeah, with these other options, there's probably a couple I like better, but I don't mind the punt if you're feeling him. The Bunnies players, we mentioned Gyro before, could be an option, but there's another two. Tavita Totola and Sean Kepi. I had Tavita Totola in my team before the trials and after the trial. Him and Kepi both did amazing, and I thought, if I like the look of both of these guys, I'm better off having Kepi at this stage because he's cheaper. The main thing with Kepi's game that I preferred to Totola's was the offload. If he seems to develop a bit more of an offload, you own 40 minutes with his PPM, 50 points, beautiful. You'll take that as your second prop, as a rough calculation there. Totola, I like as the fact that we know what he can do is kind of that pod that used to sit at around the 550 to 600K mark. And I believe, he had a bit of a disrupted season last year and the injuries and all that kind of crap. If he comes back, I think he can, he's just a bit of a kind of like an underpriced guy that I think is a bit underpriced for what he can do. And both very low owned. So Kepi seems to be an option both a couple of years and just hasn't ticked on. Moved over from Manly. Looks like he'll start at prop. Obviously, if you didn't start at prop, I'd just switch back to Totola. But kind of at the price, as I said, with people like Sam Hughes on your bench, I'm happy to take a punt on a guy like this. 4% for Kepi at the moment, and I'm sure Totola, 2.6%. Thoughts, Jake?
I thought, especially Kepi, he was good on the weekend in the trial. Totola, very, like you said, he's just a meat and potato sort of player. He's, hit ups and runs, doesn't really add any attacking stats, but he's averaged 50 in the past. So I think he's maybe priced at maybe 40-ish, low 40. So definitely some value, potential value in Totola. I think Kepi, again, he just hasn't taken that next jump in SuperCoach. Like last year, everyone a lot of people started with him and he kind of just plodded along and didn't take that jump, didn't get the minutes. I don't know if he gets that at Souths either. I know their bench is maybe a bit uncertain in terms of rotation, but Cam Murray's going to be playing nearly 80 minutes. Tallis Duncan seems to be, one that they wanted to promote and get into the middle because he's kind of like a Cameron Murray while Cameron Murray's not on the field, maybe. So I don't know. They both seem to be. There's definitely value in both of them. I don't know if there's enough, but again, front row, there's barely any value in front row, so you may as well just go with someone that can get you, enough points to get by with, and hopefully, snag a try or have one big game, get your price rise, and hopefully on sell them for someone that's fallen in price.
Yeah, exactly. Like with these guys, I think 40 minutes could be enough for someone like Kepi if he puts a bit of an
you
offload
take
in
40
his game.
minutes for either of them, 100%.
But there is a world where maybe they get a little bit less. And I think Totola is kind of their seasoned guy. Probably could get more minutes out of the two. But, I guess it's a wait and see. Because in 2022, Totola averaged 51. And last year, 43. So if some can go back to that, then, some could say he's 8 points undervalued. So, keen on both of these guys as I'm keen on a cheaper second starter. Go over to the Panthers. And I want to go over to the Panthers because we expect on the bench, no Spencer Lenu. There is a world where Maverick Gaia could start. I think there is. But I believe the next man up, and I've usually been pretty on the money with who I believe the next man up is going to be, and I believe it'll be Liam Henry. We've already seen a lot by him. He'll be 238K. But he'll be like Spencer Lenu. He's going to get a few minutes And you could take a punt if you want to, but I prefer obviously the Hughes and Willison over him. But I do want to talk about Fisher, Harrow, and Leota just a little bit. 515K, 444K for most Leota, both owned under 5%. I don't know if I'd take the punt on these guys, but I think realistically, you're not going to see their minutes uptick. I think you might fall in a trap with going these guys. But at the end of the day, like Leota's just getting better and better. If you said to Tola, like maybe, like towards the end of the grand final, look at some of the attacking stats he was selling the pool. And Leota was one of those guys that was just knocking the ball all the time. That's become fast one of my favorite players in Penrith. So maybe if I've got the money, I might just do something sneaky and cheeky. And instead of Kepi or Totola, run Moses Leota as just a Hail Mary. And I could see a world where at that price point, it could work. But I guess with them, you want to go for guys that you think are going to increase in minute or increase in role. And look, their minutes aren't going to change, and they're heavily relied on to lay the foundation for Cleary. So, bit of a wild one.
Jake, when you've won how many in a row, as I can see in the back of just behind you there, Mikey, our other side, yeah, he made sure to set that up.
I forgot I had it. So I was like,
you want a little prop.
Yep.
When you've won, however many in a row, you don't really need to change what's not broken, do you? So I think they're going to be playing the same minutes. Yoey's going to be playing 80. You're going to be bringing on, Lindsay Smith, Liam Henry or Mav Guy, whoever's kind of in that middle rotation.
Gardner.
Or Garner, moves, I guess, Sols to the middle. So they kind of, you don't really need to change it.
Scare you away from
change
them,
it much, yeah.
Before any other front row that we haven't mentioned, there is one more I have, but we'll flick to you.
Well, I kind of wanted to bring up the discussion. You did mention about Penrith. Spencer Linu, 20% owned.
Yep. Good
I mean, we talked about Terrell May before. I kind of just forgot that Spencer Linu was at the Roosters. He's kind of a guy that I think's over-owned. I know he's cheap-ish, but I see him playing the same role he did at Penrith at the Roosters, that impact player. Come on, go hammer and tong for 15, 20 minutes, and then that's kind of it. I don't see it being SuperCoach relevant. Are you kind of under that same opinion?
I've had him in and out of my side. I do kind of agree with it, but he's pretty cheap. And if he goes to the Roosters and starts, they're going to have a pretty stacked bench. I don't know if he's going to have enough of a minute increase, but at 330K as a backup front rower, like I still think the tries are going to be on offer at the Roosters. He's going to get fed nice sharp balls from hooker. Especially from
Cheese?
Oh, who likes to run it himself? No, not him. But when Watson comes on the field, I'll be a bit more interested. But at the same time, like 330K, I think he could be worth the punt. I know a lot of seasoned super coaches that aren't too keen on him, but I think for that price point, if there isn't too many other options, I don't hate, a stab in the dark at him. Like I don't currently have him, but if he's starting, I think it might pull a few more people in. But at the same time, I think whether or not he starts, I think the minutes are going to be the same. But I think the main reason he would have gone to the Roosters, surely, I know he wants to be a starter. So if he wants to be a starter, maybe do we see a little bit more to Spencer Linu? And that could be a reason that there could be value in him, which I definitely think there is some value in there. You just want to have him for that nice little run of tries where you can at least make your 100K and move on.
Yeah, he definitely has that potential. What about you, Mikey? Is this your last guy?
Yeah, Max King. If you wanted a higher profile option, 5.3%. And the big thing with the Bulldogs is there is a hole at front row for them. I know you said there's a world where Samuel Hughes could be starting with him, but out of all their options, Max King now looks to be the leading guy. I know Thompson. He looks to be the main guy for the Bulldogs that are going to pour all these minutes. And just a meat and potatoes kind of guy. What you see is what you get. You're not going to get all those crazy tries or nothing like that, but we could see more minutes on the table for him. And in saying that, which is what makes him for the pod hunters, a decent option. One that I don't currently have, but I don't hate it. If you wanted to run two more decent options, I don't mind a Cotter and Max King combo at front row. I think that'd be one where I wouldn't stress as hard to go, yep, these guys would lay enough of a platform to start the season while I sweep and fix other spots and target other spots. Any love for Max King, Jake?
Yes, definitely. He's actually in my team.
Nice.
He's been in and out. But last year kind of put the offload away, and I think that was kind of with the injuries he kind of had, and I guess the Bulldogs were kind of missing a lot of players as well. So I think offload may come back. I think he was easily top 5 in offloads a couple of years ago in terms of forwards. 2 years ago, and I think he can be back. I think you're going to get 55 to 60 minutes out of him. So I think he can definitely average over 60, which means he's priced at a discount. So
yeah,
I'm definitely keen on Max King, and I think his ownership will potentially go up leading into round 0 or round 1, whatever we're calling it.
Yeah, high on my radar, that's for sure. I think we've done a pretty good cover there, Jake. That kind of wraps us up for technically our final. That's all our positions done in 3 episodes. Kind of to get the momentum going for the year. We might have a break. I'm not sure. Obviously, next week I will, if we're both available, we'll do a proper preseason. We'll do a trial wrap up. Might even get some questions up there. I definitely think, and then we'll probably obviously be, if we can't link up with Sabs and Tim for their main podcast, we will also do a short round 0 team list, the 4 teams to talk about. So we will do one for that. Obviously, I'm going to be very keen to, I'm going to be up nice and early on Sunday morning to watch a preseason challenge. Very keen for that. Overall code there, just reminder 281645. Jump into that on Sav's podcast. He'll tell you what the prizes are. At the same time, too, we're getting close to round 0. If you are a super coach that lives in Sydney and you're going to be going to or got a ticket to that Vegas thing that they're doing, me, Tim, and also Savs are going to be there. So come say hi if you're going there. Pretty keen to watch the opening round there. I think it'll be a bit of fun with some crazy super coaches. So if you are going to that and you see us, come say hi. Apart from that, thanks for coming on, Jake. And keen for another week of trials, I bet.
Yep, 100%, man. It's I guess we've gone through all our teams now. It's just concentrating on the trials and fine-tuning all our teams. I'm looking forward to it.
Which I'm sure with all the changes we've been doing, I'm sure there'll be many more after this week's one as we see what we think will be more consolidated sides.
100%. I guess we'll get team lists tomorrow as well. So, tomorrow for us, but you guys already know the team list because it's probably come out on Thursday or Wednesday. So whatever.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you guys, by the time you're watching this, you know what the team lists are. We don't. But yeah, have fun taking your sides apart, everyone, and we'll catch you next week.
Sweet.
Catch up.